Open the door and you keep that open.
All right, very good, everybody. Welcome everyone to our work session this afternoon, and we're going to move right into our regular agenda as we take a minute to switch over. Our first item on the agenda this afternoon will be United Housing Connections and an update, and it's an opportunity for us to get to know their new executive director, Candace, and their team. And then we'll move from there into a development code update from Michael Frickson, and that item will be going to Planning Commission in September and then on to City Council. And then from there, we will have an update from Heath Dillard to end our day about some positive tourism numbers that we experienced in 2023 and this part of 2024. So,
all right.
Very good. So as soon as we get the presentation up, we will go ahead and get started. Setting it up. All right, and have we switched from an executive session to regular session link?
We have.
Or WebEx link? Thank you, Garrison. All right, Candace, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we got about 20 minutes, so
Okay. All right. Okay.
the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing us this time to be here today. I am Candace Timmerman. I am the new CEO of United Housing Connections. I am also the Upstate Continuum of Care Chair, or formerly known as the Upstate Homeless Coalition Chair. And I have my team with me, part of my team, Stephanie Cole. She's our Chief Programs Officer. Stephanie has a background in nursing home administration and has very creative ways of making sure our housing programs and our outreach program are 5-star services. Stephanie has an MBA from North Greenville University, and then we also have Thomas Wood. He is our lead outreach. Thomas has a social work degree from Limestone University, and he is also a 24-year Army veteran with tours in Afghanistan, Fallujah, and Mogadishu. So he is really boots on the ground and very compassionate and just goes above and beyond to make contact with our friends who are experiencing homelessness. I myself have a political science degree from Lander University. I have a certificate in nonprofit management from Winthrop, and I have 14 years experience providing housing and services to those who are experiencing chronic homelessness and intimate partner violence victims. So I just want you to know who your team is here today. So go ahead. So our mission is to connect people who are at risk of or experiencing chronic homelessness or at risk of homelessness to safe, sustainable, affordable housing. We envision in upstate South Carolina where everybody has the opportunity to have the opportunity to live in safe, sustainable, affordable housing. So we have 4 divisions at United Housing Connections. We have the Continuum of Care. I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but that is made up of over 80 different homeless service providers, many of those being in Greenville. United Housing Connection is the lead agency, and I'll tell you a little bit more shortly. Affordable housing. We have 396 affordable housing opportunities that we own. Some are managed by NHE, and some of them we own and manage ourselves. Supportive housing programs, those are for chronically homeless with a disability. And we also have this Home Again program, which the Greenville Housing Fund funds. Thank you so much, Brian Brown. And so that one is a referral from the Greenville County School District to the McKinney-Vento liaisons for homeless children. Stephanie is going to tell you a little bit more about that. And then our street outreach. Thank you so much for your funding for that. That is from the city of Greenville. And that is where Thomas and his team go and make contact with our friends who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness. So on the streets or in encampments and woods, things like that, and try to make connections with them, build trust, and connect them with housing and supportive services. So, yeah, we want to create a homeless system, and we can do it where homelessness is brief, rare, and non-recurring. So this is according to the 2024 homeless point in time count in January. There were 725 people that were counted as experiencing literal homelessness. So that means in a street, shelter, place not meant for human habitation, vehicle, or a shelter or transitional housing program facilitated temporarily by an agency. So as you can see, the demographics, I'm sorry, y'all. There were actually 155 on that night were unsheltered. But again, this is just a snapshot and what we can do with our volunteers at the time. I will tell you, when the time of the white paper came out 10 years ago, that was 938 people on the night of 2014. So we, we have made progress. It's slow.
Candace, make sure, just so everybody's clear, both for our public that's listening and our media partners, that 725 includes what geographic area?
That is just Greenville County.
Just Greenville County. So we just want to make sure that that gets in the conversation correctly.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So next, I'm going to show you the housing inventory count. So that is what was at the snapshot of that night. So we had chronic homeless, survivors of domestic violence, disabling, and 66 veterans.
And you're saying that in 2014, when the white paper was completed, that number for Greenville County was 938? 938. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. This right here, so what we had is, this is the housing inventory count. So, the Continuum of Care lead agency does this. But this is also looking at shelters that might not be on our homeless management information system. So like Miracle Hill, Salvation Army, they're included in here. But on that night, it also included cold weather shelters and things like that. So the safe haven is Reedy Place. You have to have a mental illness for that. Emergency shelter and transitional housing. Those were all counted in the, housing inventory count where there could have been an opportunity for shelter. Okay, so a continuum of care, what is that? It is, the United States is split into geographic areas, and it was established by the Code of Federal Regulations by Housing Urban Development, and it is to come together and develop a strategic plan, streamline services for those who experience homelessness, and address gaps. We also manage and distribute all the federal funds to address homelessness through the Housing Urban Development Continuum of Care. And these are the chapters. There are 4 continuums in the state of South Carolina. And our continuum, the upstate continuum of care, is made up of 13 counties and is split into these chapters. So like I said, we are the lead agency, have been since inception. And we serve as the collaborative applicant to Housing Urban Development Continuum of Care. And we manage the homeless management information systems. Okay, and I'm going to turn it over to Thomas to talk a little bit of outreach, and I'll come back to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm the lead outreach worker with our team. I work for you to make sure that we can reach out to our individuals who are having chronic homelessness downtown and in our county as well. I go out into the county as well. But to enhance and grow current services, to engage, support, serve those living on the streets of Greenville, to provide personalized service and care. Basically what that means is we want to make the case management and the services that we provide centric to the individual and their needs, try to help them overcome their boundaries, to be able to move forward in life and be able to get into housing.
I'm sorry, real quick question.
Sure.
How do you guys define chronic?
So chronic homelessness is actually defined by HUD, right? So if they're experiencing 4 times of homelessness within a 3-year period, and those 4 times equal 12 months, that's considered chronic homelessness.
Okay.
If they are homeless for an entire year, then they're considered chronically homeless.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. The primary goal of outreach is to connect and form trust, build relationships. It can take 5 to 7 interactions just to build up enough trust to have open conversation. So what's that mean? So sometimes some people, it's only going to take a few conversations to be able to figure out how to overcome their boundaries and move them beyond that. Prime example, we had an individual called us on the outreach line. We talked to her, found out how much money she was making, found out her boundaries were 7 evictions on her records. They were keeping her from being housed. We reached out to one of our community partners, Noah Properties, had a discussion, worked with them. We were able to get her moved into housing along with some supportive letter. We used some of the Keep the Change funds to help with her deposit, and we got her moved in. We did that in about 5 days because she had the resources to be able to move into someplace. It was just those evictions that were keeping her from being housed, and she was homeless on the street. However, we have other individuals where we have sat down, been with them, sat with them for a year, year and a half. Had a woman, she was sitting outside of Sticky Fingers for over a year and a half, sat with her, had many conversations. Over time, we were able to gain her trust and actually got her moved into permanent supportive housing, and she's still there today. Okay, outreach impact for this year at this point, and this may not seem like much, but these are unique touches, unique individuals per quarter, okay? We had 53 men, 11 women, and 17 veterans that we encountered in the downtown area and out in the outer lying areas that were experiencing homelessness, and we provided 166 services. And I'll go into services in just a moment so you know what those are. In quarter 2, we had 39 men. As it warmed up, they dispersed a little bit more, they're a little bit harder to find. 5 women, 16 veterans, and 186 services. So overall, year to date, after those 2 quarters, we had 92 men, 16 women, 33 veterans, and 352 services that were provided. During those first 2 quarters, we were able to get 11 housed permanently, and we were able to get 4 veterans housed as well.
I hate to keep asking questions, but
No problem.
when you say 53 men, 11 women, there's 64 and 17 of those 64 veterans, or is it 64 plus 17?
64 plus 17.
Okay.
Okay. So what services are we providing? These are the services. We provide transportation services to medical appointments, DMV, mental health, things that are boundaries that are keeping them from being able to be housed. Information on housing options and jobs. We help them fill out applications. We help them find jobs. We help them move beyond that. Assistance obtaining official documents. As you know, for our homeless folks that are downtown, it is so easy for them to lose their social security cards, their records, their driver's licenses, ID, things that you just have to have in order to get a job, in order to get health care and so forth. We help them reobtain those documents. Referrals to mental health and detox if they're ready to move beyond a substance abuse or a mental health issue. We get them connected with Greater Greenville Mental Health. We connect with our partners like Triune, United Ministries, and others in order to work as a collaboration to be able to get them into shelter and to be able to get them beyond boundaries. And we provide case management with every single one of those. So our outreach team is providing case management on a regular basis to every individual that we encounter downtown that is being afflicted with homelessness. So that brings us to veterans, right? Veteran functional 0. This says functional 0 for chronic veterans experiencing homelessness means that fewer veterans are experiencing homelessness than are becoming homeless. So in other words, we want to be able to house more veterans that are homeless than we have coming into our list, because we have a veterans master list. And that veterans master list consists of a meeting that takes place every other Friday. And those names that are on that list, they come from our HMIS system, and we coordinated entry, and we prioritize, put them onto the list, and we add those names. And then we have a meeting with the VA, Upstate Warrior Solution, Austin Wolf Society. All of these key players come into this meeting, and we case conference these individuals and try to find ways to get them housed, be it through HUD-VASH programs or through SSVF programs. Don't ask me to say what SSVF is. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But we're getting people housed. Just last Friday, 12 names were housed off that list. So what is the community? The community, we have to identify all the veterans who are experiencing chronic homelessness and get them added to that list. Community provides shelter quickly to any veteran experiencing unsheltered homelessness who wants it. As we know, our shelters are overrun. It's a challenge to be able to get them into that shelter. However, the Grant Per Diem House just moved. They added a lot of beds, and through them, we're able to get them inside and provide some kind of shelter until we can provide them with permanent housing. Provide service-intensive transitional housing only in limited instances. Service by the benchmarks that the federal government puts on us, service-intensive beds count against us when it comes to housing. Those numbers that go onto that list, into that benchmark, they should be receiving chronic clinical services or something like that. So we need more clinical services in order to be able to get the number down on service intensive. Has capacity to assist chronic homelessness swiftly and move into permanent housing. And we all know that housing is the main issue there, right? Community has resources, plans, partnerships, and system capacity in place should a veteran become homelessness or at risk. This means we have to continue we're doing a great job. Honestly, we're doing a great job of building these systems that work with the city, the county, and so forth to be able to provide system supportive services that are helping these veterans get housed. But this functional zero program, if we can make this work and make Greenville become the first functional zero city on the eastern seaboard, then we can take that and spread that same system out to our chronically homeless on the street, because it shows that there is a system that can work. Next.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
First of all, you do a great job, and thank you for the zeal in which y'all do this. I really appreciate it. But who's your team now? Used to be 3 of you. Now is it just you?
So there's still 3.
3 of you?
There's
Okay.
3 of us at the moment. Right now it's myself,
Okay.
Amanda, we just brought her on board. And then we also hired Josh Grubbs and brought him on board as well.
Okay. And what are your
Okay.
hours of operation?
So
now?
hours of operation, great
What that
question.
issue? Yeah.
So our hours of operation right now, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. On Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, we run 10 to 7. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, we have people on staff 10 to 7 as well.
10 to 7 on the weekends.
That's correct.
Okay. A couple things. It's so different when you're dealing with a person who you can converse with, or even if it's a person you're having trouble getting information from, at least you're conversing, as opposed to what we see on Academy Street a lot these days, which is somebody lying on the sidewalk at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in broad daylight, face down on the sidewalk. And last week, there were a couple people in the bus stops, totally on the ground at the bus stop. So those folks are not very conversant, but I'm kind of curious. So how, when you're approaching those people today, what does that look like?
Well, first off, that's a great question. Greenlink has been working with us. Their supervisor will call us if they're going out to a bus stop where they've gotten a complaint about a homeless individual in there. If they contact us, we will go out before the or with the supervisor and have conversations. Just 2 months ago, there was a woman in a bus stop outside of the hospital, Prisma, and they called us. We went down there. We had a conversation with that woman. We actually got her into a boarding house. So she did get housed for
You,
that.
James, are your drivers call reporting this in when they see it?
Yeah, normally if a driver's out riding around, there's somebody that's, hanging out at a bus stop for a long time, they'll call it into supervisor. If it comes in that way, or it comes in through maintenance that's out riding around,
Yeah.
then a supervisor will usually reach out.
I mean, I'm no kidding. Last week, 2 different bus stops, completely lying on the ground, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, dead asleep or whatever.
Numbers are up.
But I hope your folks don't feel like the bus drivers do see it and reporting it.
Our passengers complain as well, right?
I would imagine it's uncomfortable for them when they try to go to the bus stop, yeah. But the situation around Project Coast is what I was talking about recently. It seems like it's gotten a whole lot worse. That's been in there a long time, so things have just noticing a change in things. Both sides of the road, again, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2 or 3 people out cold on the sidewalk.
Right.
Just outside.
So we have conversations with those individuals, and the ones that are willing to accept help, we do provide them with help. But the ones that are not willing to accept help, well, we can't do much with that.
They just continue to lay on the sidewalk, right? Call the police or,
So
I'm talking in most of these cases, literally 1 foot from traffic. I mean, the head is only this far from the trucks going by.
right.
That's
And
extremely dangerous.
anytime that we find somebody that might be in danger due to their own cognizance or
Yeah.
something, the immediate suggestion is to contact GPD and let them handle that situation. Along Academy right there, we've had that discussion with the property owners, because we actually own the property. So, and after a conversation with GPD and so forth, discussing the issues, we worked with GPD. We got signs that were posted up. If you notice that traffic has actually gone down quite a bit from where it was, because we got signs that were posted that allowed GPD to be able to come in and do their job and say, you can't just loiter here, you have to move along.
Okay, all right, that's one that seems to have gotten.
We've got 4 minutes. Let's let them finish through their presentation and then we'll take questions. Candace, I think you were gonna if we could just run through these last couple slides
Yeah.
quickly, because we only have 4 minutes to our next agenda
Okay,
item.
okay. Just so you know, this is our affordable housing piece. This is Seneca Liberty Square, and this is Sunset Village and Fountain Inn. So these are for 62 and older. And also, we have family housing who live with a mental illness. I mean, just so y'all know, we are talking about chronic homelessness here today, but in Greenville, there are 57,000 people who are ALIS, asset limited, income constrained employed. So, this is what we're doing to help with affordable housing, okay? Church Street Place, okay, so, Church Street Place is 97%, thank you. 97% complete. Again, in the white paper, the goal was to provide more single room occupancies and permanent supportive housing for those who are chronically homeless. This will provide 36 more units. So we have partnerships that we're working with the VA, Mental Health, Triune Mercy, Miracle Hill, Salvation Army, and VA, Mental Health, Triune, Salvation Army, United Ministries, and Miracle Hill. So what they're doing is that they're providing the referrals, the most chronic homeless. So, all of them may not come from the street, but the ones who do come from the shelter will open up shelter beds so that those on the street could move into shelter.
Yeah.
We know not, everybody has a choice, but, it will be an option, and it is gonna be a, state-of-the-art, beautiful place, almost done. Okay, next slide. Yeah, I won't kind of tell y'all about this, but we have, these are our permanent supportive housing programs. So we have to have a physical disability or a mental disability. Fountain Inn, these are Spartanburg, Greenville, these are spread out, Spartanburg, Greenville, Anderson. Home again, we get the referrals from the McKinney-Vento liaisons or the social workers. They have to be, children who are experiencing homelessness that can be doubled up, a different type of homelessness than our, point in time. Reedy Place has 15 units together. Reedy 1 and Reedy 2 have 23 units, but it is, for those with a mental illness, okay? Okay?
Thank you very much. Okay, we have about 4 to 5 minutes that we can take for questions. Councilmember DeWorke.
Yes, thank you very much. I have some comments and first of all, thank you for all that you do.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it. I'm gonna make some comments, but it reminds me often when you have a complaint about a utility, right? You don't call one of your utilities, there's a person on the end of the line, you're gonna complain to them, so you happen to be that person today.
Yes, okay.
I am really concerned and I'm quite frankly not happy. Along Stone and Rutherford, there has been an incredible amount of increase of individuals experiencing homelessness. That in of itself is an issue that needs to be addressed.
Yes.
Okay, my concern is this, that I get phone calls almost daily, and I just got a text literally from someone just minutes ago that tell me stories of what is really happening. And there's increased crime, there's increased loitering, I'll just give you some examples. Along Rutherford, Ashley, West Mountain View, James Street, Earl Street, what we're seeing is we're having fights in people's backyards. We're having homeless people waking up on people's porches. We're finding syringes and needles. We're finding broken bottles on James Street, Ashley. I mean, these are really scary things that are occurring, and my neighbors are begging me for help. And with the increased amount of individuals that you can see hanging out in Rutherford, there is, in Stone, I'm having major, I cannot emphasize this enough, and believe me, I'm sensitive to it. I'm one of the biggest supporters of the effort to try to help the individuals experiencing homelessness. But I'm at wit's end with what to do about my neighbors who are now their peaceful enjoyment living is now being adversely impacted.
Right.
So you just happen to be the person.
I
So-
understand, I understand.
So thank you for being here. And this is not an indictment of y'all. This is just a macro, like,
I understand.
we have to get to the
I
bottom of this.
understand. We are glad to be, a part of it. One of the things for Church Street Place is there are 6 units for Triune Mercy, and actually they're gonna take on potentially 2 more. But that is, from my understanding, the homeless triangle, because Triune Mercy is right there. Salvation Army's not too far
Yep.
away. But, and we have lost some recovery beds. So one of the things that we do is we do Housing First, which puts them in immediately because it's easier to address addiction, make, meetings or recovery or go to rehab. We can hold the unit for them. So that's one of the things, even being connected with our outreach team, they can, like Thomas said, make outreach appointments with, mental health. They can be taken there. Thomas, do you want to speak to any more? We're trying to.
Well, and
continue-
again, I don't mean to put it just at your
Yeah.
feet. It was just a forum to be able to
Yeah.
say,
I want to tell you, I'm sorry, we have 6 new, we're running the COC competition right now, which is a notice of funding opportunity. Total, there is, 6 new grantees that are applying for funding. It's a competition. But we all understand the, gravity of kind of what's going on. I want you to know that we take that very seriously. We want to, do our best to provide new opportunities. I know that it is to a level that it's not been everywhere right now. So
thank you.
thank you. Yes.
Councilmember Gibson?
Just real quickly, I mean, if we really were like actually really serious about fixing this,
Mhm.
about really addressing our homeless problem,
Mhm.
what would you guys need?
Well, more housing, more permanent supportive housing.
How
Supportive
many
service.
units?
How many units? Brian?
I've been told 300.
Okay, so 300 permanent housing units, what else?
Supportive services,
Such as,
like case management with transportation. I think there needs to be more recovery beds too, because at this point too, if someone did, Thomas had an example, if someone did want to go or finally, agree to go to rehab, for example, a homeless court could not make a recommendation. It has to go
Because there
through
are no
general
beds.
sessions.
and I
Yes.
run into the same problem as a criminal defense lawyer Trying to get clients in
Yes.
to inpatient drug treatment.
So
There are
then-
no beds.
By the time they're waiting for the bed, then they change their mind. So,
Okay.
you know, something, maybe we could fix that where homeless court could make a recommendation. They could go right away.
So we need more resources into drug treatment facilities and particularly inpatient drug treatment.
Yes.
And you said more services. What other kind of services would we need?
Well, I think transportation and mental health services.
Okay, and what would you guys need to be able to provide that?
Well, funding, you know, we're on the tail end of Church Street right now, but
Mhm.
again, there's grant opportunities. There's a new COC, no-fo builds. There can only be one in the entire continuum, and we have some different, providers and, cities looking into that too. Like I say, we have applied for project-based vouchers for Church Street, and we're, trying to gain our footing and, take a breath for a minute for Church Street. But, we always push for more grantees to learn the system, to learn to apply for the system and be compliant. So that's what we're doing now. We spent time this morning reviewing, new grantee shared submitting a new application for joint transitional and rapid rehousing. In Anderson, they have one applying for permanent supportive housing. So just more, we have the opportunity based on our, population size, poverty and housing stock to have access to more housing than what we're doing now, but we have to have the capacity and more.
And from the outreach part, what would you need in order to be able to go 24 hours?
More outreach workers.
How many more?
I would say we need at least 4 effective teams just in the downtown area.
Four effective teams of 3?
But I would say that would be a good number.
So we need at
Yep.
least 9 more outreach workers.
I would agree with that.
And what would that salary and cost be? We always complain about homeless people and people out on the streets and stuff like that. So either we're gonna actually put the resources in it to fix it, or we're gonna keep sitting around complaining about it and trying to figure out ways to put people in jail. And I'm not supporting people, putting homeless people in jail.
Amen.
So if we're gonna fix it, if we really care about it, let's find out what it's gonna take to fix it and let's put the resources into it. But this is not some simple problem. This is not unique to Greenville. This is something that is nationwide. And like I say, if we're going to actually attack it, let's put the resources into it and do it instead of just keep talking about it.
Thank you for that, and I appreciate you finding out the solutions, but I don't believe it is ours to solve alone. I think it has got to be a collaboration amongst the providers. I don't believe that the city should be in the business of leading this effort. I think it's in the business of being a partner in this effort.
Then let's lead that effort.
Thank you.
Let's do something to fix it instead of just sitting around complaining
We're
about it.
running out of time, so Councilmember Downs, 30 seconds,
I got
Councilmember
you.
Fleming. Councilmember Fleming had her hand up first. Councilmember Fleming.
One thing I wanted to say is that could help at the state level. I have found, because I get phone calls all the time, the city does not own this problem. But people are being evicted from public housing units incorrectly.
Yes.
There's a process. It should take you almost a year to throw anybody out, but they're throwing them out the same day they evict them. And sometimes they throw them out for something somebody in another apartment did. So here's the problem. When HUD comes to visit those apartments, and they see them in there just painting or whatever, but they don't talk to the people who are having the problem. And the people who've been evicted. When you find 6 dead people in an apartment complex in less than 3 months, somebody is doing something wrong. So I'm just saying,
But I
that's
should,
a problem.
but
And
I
the state can help us with
respect
that.
everybody here, but I should be able to bring this up because
I'm not saying that at all.
Oh, yeah, you can bring it up. I'm just saying, the state needs to help us with by evicting these people and throwing them out there, and then they have nowhere to put them.
Yeah.
Because they have not followed the process. They have a bed.
And let me
We've
make,
been there.
let me make it, I think your constituents' concerns are legitimate. I think the points that you're bringing up at this meeting right now are legitimate. But with that said, if we're going to fix it, it's not gonna be through what we're doing right now.
Oh, no.
It's just not.
Councilmember Dow.
I've got an
comment?
easy question. Didn't you say y'all were boots on the grounding to talk to people? If you could just recap that?
And so effectively 8 until 7 Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, 8 to 4:30 on Thursday and Friday, and then 10 to 7 on Saturday and Sunday.
And I keep Thomas's card in my phone.
And are there other entities that provide
So there are.
that service?
Thank you.
Y'all aren't the only ones
We're,
doing
we're
that.
not,
Police department.
we're not,
Yeah.
the-
Other nonprofits.
we're pretty much the only full-time outreach team.
Yeah. they're about-
However, we have outreach collaboratives with United Ministries, Triune, Miracle Hill, and so on. We always meet, we meet on Thursdays. We choose an area, we go out into that area and perform homeless outreach on those days and provide services to those individuals that we encounter then as well.
Yeah.
And I wanted to
Other
say one more thing,
complication
sorry.
is a lot of these people are passing through. They're here for a week, they're here for 2 weeks, and they're gone. You know, it's-
Okay, Candace, go ahead and wrap it up, but we have to move on to our next
Okay,
item.
just so y'all know too, the paramedics, you know, a lot of, they have that opioid response funding. And so anytime that anybody has an overdose, they have, the paramedic teams can go and provide outreach too, and continued outreach. So they have the names of who this has happened to, and continue to make contact with them to see if they would be willing to access recovery or rehab. So it's not only that, it's the fire department has it too.
Yeah,
It's
so-
opioid. And then so outreach with United Housing Connection, outreach with Place of Hope. So I do think it is a collaborative, approach because, you know, it's just so enormous. Councilman Stahl, I know you had your hand up.
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you all. This is a very, obviously, you know, a subject that we have a lot of passion about
Yeah.
and something that we'll have continuous conversation about in the months moving forward. Thank you very much for being here and welcome to Greenville. Thank you all very much. We'll see you at the formal meeting for
Yeah, I'll be
quick.
there for 5
Yeah,
to
just-
7 minutes.
Yeah, just to, so the public that couldn't hear tonight can have a chance to hear the overview. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, Michael, you're up. So we're moving into an update on our Greenville Development Code, just to go over some of the high points of what you should expect in our update for Greenville Development Code. Again, this will be going to the Planning Commission in September, and then will be before City Council in September also. This is our commitment to the community that we made when we adopted this development code. We promised this community that we would come every 6 months for the first year, and then a minimum of a year thereafter about things related to the development code that we needed to update and change in order to respond to our community and the things that we're hearing. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael Frickson, who's been overseeing this project for us. Michael?
Thank you, Shannon, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to be presenting the 12-month round of updates to you. So on the screen here is just a brief timeline of the process that we're going through. So we're here today at the council workshop. Tomorrow, these will be shown at the project preview meeting. And then we'll be moving forward to the public hearing with the planning commission and city council approval after that. We are not proposing any map amendments with this round of updates. So we may come back with some in the future, but there weren't any urgent enough for the city to initiate a rezoning. So let's see, move forward. Then the only other thing I'll point out on this slide is last week we had 2 coffee with the code sessions over at Unity Park and had some nice turnout for that morning and afternoon session. So just part of our public outreach, and we're continuing to welcome and accept any public comments through our planning@greenvillesc.gov email address. All right, so overall, we continue to believe that the code is working as intended. Commercial and residential projects are working to meet the code. I'll note that the 1-year transitional kind of grace period for a lot of single-family projects ended on July 15th. So any permits submitted after that must comply with the new code. We'll say that due to, just site constraints, unique property issues, that it's really difficult for any one project to meet 100% of the development code and all the different parts that come with it. And that's true for Greenville, that's true for any community. So every project involves some degree of balancing and seeing, what that level of investment is, what that activity is, and what the code is actually asking for and trying to achieve. So I'll say that staff works really proactively with every applicant, and we have granted significant administrative relief, whether that's at a staff level or guided someone through the variance process with the Board of Zoning Appeals. Seeing the code play out with real-world projects has also, unveiled where we need a little bit of additional flexibility or relief within the code. So our first 6-month update, had responded to a lot of those issues, and this 12-month update is continuing to just build on the progress that we made and those fine-tuning and adjustments from the last time. I'll say that staff is also looking at some possible tiered kind of development requirements and standards based on that level of investment, just to provide a little bit more formal guidance within the actual code document. So,
Would you explain what that is?
so it could be based on the intensity of a type of business or use, providing more nuance and actually, I guess, a little bit more specificity.
Okay.
In terms of what development standards might apply and looking at that level of investment as well. So, and our consultants have worked on this with some other communities as well. So we're looking at those, and our staff actually has, backgrounds working with development codes that have some of those tiered systems. Quick update on the development bonus. We have not issued any permits yet for projects that are taking advantage of the development bonus, but we have 2 that are in the hopper and currently coming through the review and approval process. And I don't want to say specifically which ones those are, but they are currently going through the system. So that'll be contributing into the affordable housing and open space development program. All right. Leslie, can you go to the next slide? So we've made some adjustments to the applicability tables. So some of this is kind of getting into the weeds of zoning, but we've got
It's fun.
it is. So we've got our zoning requirements and then some of our development standards on, and these are in the development code. And really this comes down to what parts of the code generally apply or don't apply at all based on the type of project. And so just because a circle is bubbled or really bubbled, doesn't necessarily mean that every standard within that section applies to it either. So you have to go and read through that section, and that's where it's kind of that interacting with staff and that back and forth that happens to get that project to the right place and see which code segments apply. So we are updating these tables. I would especially note that for change of uses, we are removing some of those initial standards. So we're hoping that that'll help with some businesses as they attempt to open and start operations. So like I mentioned, a change of use would be like a bookstore, maybe going into a former bakery location. The street standards, which includes things like, the full sidewalk upgrades, some of the curb lawn and street tree requirements. Some of those will no longer be applicable, and that's simply to help those businesses be able to move and open faster. We're changing some of the language about an interior renovation to a minor renovation. So some of that, possible exterior work, maybe some minor site work would not necessarily immediately trigger these requirements. The site lighting fixtures, so like what might be in a parking lot, if you're just doing some type of like something to the building, then we're not going to make you also go out into the parking lot and upgrade all those fixtures. Resealing or restriping a parking lot will no longer be considered any type of like a major modification or site modification. If you're going to repave it, then we would look for you to come into a greater degree of compliance. Some of the materials and sign regulations we're updating as well. There's been a really substantial set of technical changes to the sign part of the code, which is really just to go and help these businesses open faster. So
that's been a issue for as long as I can remember. So in other words, this really is an effort to help these folks go through the sign process more quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I could just jump for 1 second to say, we're doing all this to try to make it easier for small businesses to go through the development process. And I think there is a misunderstanding of people that don't maybe understand what we had before with our LMO, before we went into the Greenville Development Code. of what the burden was on development for small businesses under the LMO, and that lessened under the new code. It may not always be known by that, but unless, you actually would have to have known the LMO to know that, but the development code lessened that, and we're trying to lessen that even more so with these changes, because that is the feedback that we received the most from our community, was that we need it to be easier for small businesses. And so we're trying that with this approach. And we don't know that this will be all the changes that we have to do. We may be back in January with that update with more. Okay, Michael, keep going.
Absolutely, thank you. Couple changes to the permitted use table. So this is, this will be published afterwards, and you can go and see some of the exact changes. They're actually available right now. But call attention to smoke and vape shops are proposed to be broken out as a separate use category within the table of uses. And so those will be permitted within the business heavy and the industrial areas. And there's some separation and distance requirements that are proposed for smoke and vape shops as well. Modeled after similar policies in other jurisdictions in South Carolina.
That doesn't apply to, what is this?
Tattoo?
No, see, the,
CBD?
CBD.
no.
No.
Just
Okay.
the smoke and vape shops.
So we can't do that. CBD.
All right, Michael, you got 1 minute.
So I'll say that we think we're right sizing some of the side setbacks in our residential districts, and that's what this slide is showing. The next slide, let's see. Likewise, we are also changing some of the setback standards. So in some properties, that might make sense, just with existing conditions or easements on the property for a house to be located further away from the street than what the code currently allows. Next slide. We're adding a provision where if your yard slopes down, you might be able to do like a walkout basement or that lower level without it necessarily dinging you on the overall zoning district height for that house. We are updating and providing more clarity, I should say, for some of our residential driveway standards, the parking setback, where the taper comes into play. And we are actually increasing what's been the maximum width, well, since I've been at the city, from 10 feet up to 12 feet, to make things a little bit more functional on the driveway side.
That's one of the major complaints we get, is about driveway widths at 10 feet.
So a couple of additional changes. These are focusing more, I would say, on some of the commercial side. So we have our campus master plans. So some of the areas with like some of the hospitals, Greenville Tech, some of the school districts, the Legacy Square area of Verde. This would allow for the zoning administrator to require that master plan at least be presented at like a project preview meeting, or maybe have a community meeting before we start approving projects within that campus district. I mentioned the changes to the sign standards. We have aligned our street naming requirements to match state law, and provided some kind of procedural updates to help out with minor subdivisions. So.
Thank you, Michael. Great job. Thank you. You went quick. I know you had to really push through that. All right, Councilmember Dow, you have a question?
Well, a statement and then a question. One, on the code, let's not forget that easy to develop was captured in easy to understand the code. In other words, it's not that we're saying make the code so that it's super easy to develop. It was easy to understand our development code. What the code was supposed to bring was consistency and predictability for those who are developing. So I'm hoping this is right sizing that, particularly in the area of small businesses. Now, Michael, real quick, go back to the chart that has 9-4.1.
That's it.
19-4.1, table of uses. So in that, it's like halfway through, maybe earlier on, it talks about lighting. And I hear a lot, and maybe other council members do too, about lighting. There you go. No, go back 2 more there, right there. So lower right-hand corner, lighting, you're saying if there's a change of use, lighting doesn't have to be changed? And the reason I get to this is there's lighting for a commercial facility varies, I would say, how much lighting you need depending on the use. And so, you're saying lighting with the change of use, the standards do not apply.
So,
I would say they should apply.
so for a simple change of use, simply changing that use type would not necessarily trigger the lighting standards. If they're still coming with certain amount of investment, it could still trigger some of those new construction standards.
If I change the use of a building from a bank to a bar, I'm gonna make some investment in it, yeah, but I can do it with the facade not changing. I would say our lighting should apply. I guess I'm a little nervous about and you've got specific examples probably where this has come up, and maybe we can talk about those offline, but lighting is a biggie,
Yeah.
particularly commercial for our.
I think when we come to council with the formal proposal, after we take this to planning commission, we can address that issue because we have specific issues where it's been a simple change of use where it's gone from a bookstore to a retail store or
That's
a
fine.
clothing store. And we get a lot of complaints about that because lighting tends to be one of the most expensive things to have to change on a site. So I think we can have further conversation on that.
I think we need to scalpel that a little closely, because I would agree, bookstore to retail clothing store, maybe that's not different, but this thing says change of use, regardless, lighting standards don't apply, and that makes me a little nervous. So I'll just lay that with staff to kind of look at closely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Other council members, questions or comments? Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you.
Michael.
All right. Our last item on the agenda for you this afternoon, because y'all know I like to make these packed for you. But this is good news, I think. Is Heath Dillard is here and Heath, you've got 15 minutes. That's
All right.
not bad. But really 10 minutes, so we have time for questions. So
Really
he's gonna go through and give us
Preamble, right?
some performance metrics of how we're doing with Visit Greenville.
That's
So
right.
Heath, the floor is yours.
You can go, I think it's.
No questions, hush.
Keep on going. Hey, we'll start there.
There we go. Let's start with what y'all
All right.
care about, the dollars.
One thing I wanted to start with was just to thank you for your support in FY '24. You see the top number there was the entire revenue budget for Visit Greenville in fiscal '24. So with the city's contribution of the local aid tax, the statutory numbers that come out of the local aid tax and the state aid tax, plus the additional incremental marketing and event-related support that come out of the aid tax committee that you all approved, the city was able to help boost that budget by the tune of $3.9 million. Just so you have a regional idea of where that puts us in comparison, Charleston and Asheville are both around $30 million each. Charlotte's around 20 million. Myrtle Beach is around 50 million. So that's not to say that we compete with those cities. It's just to say they are going after the same origin markets for visitors that we are. And we are trying to cut through the clutter of all those other places so that people will come visit us. All right, keep on going. Lots of good news here. So you'll notice that right after the beginning of the calendar year, things started to really improve. They were already up year over year for every month of fiscal '24. But I wanted to point out that we went live with the Evolve brand look and feel into all of our media markets in the middle of January. Beginning with February, the first full month that all of our media was in place, we saw a new record year, and we saw a new record month, sorry, and we saw a new record month for 5 consecutive months, which drove almost 4.7 million web sessions. We are seeing 15,000 people come to Visit Greenville SC every single day. And it was a record, and we grew year over year by 57%. So great news. We got people excited. What the website does and what some other means do is to convert that excitement into actual trips. We saw referrals to our small businesses. So referrals off of our site to a restaurant reservation, to a hotel booking engine, to a concert ticket purchase or something like that. We saw record numbers of that as well. We hire a third party to measure the effectiveness of our advertising. And you can see that from pre-COVID, the ratio of spending that we could drive back to this market based on our advertising has improved the efficiency of that money from 179 to 1 to 245 to 1, to the tune of generating almost $1 billion in incremental ad influence travel spending. So that's the spending that happens in hotels, short-term rentals, whether we like them or not, restaurants, bars, breweries, concert halls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we should have a gross number of overall visitor spending here in the coming weeks, but that's specific to what our advertising generated to the market. On the group sales side, we also saw a record year. We booked 155,000 room nights for fiscal '24 and beyond. Bowling represented 60,000 of those, so we didn't want that to water down our number. Even without bowling, it would have been the second highest year in room night production in Visit Greenville history. It was up 33% year over year if we don't include bowling, but we more than doubled last year's production when we include that really significant event for 2028. As we look forward, we're always looking at a future 4-year horizon. So if you look back to fiscal '22, we were looking at 2022 through 2025. In '24, we were looking at 2024 through 2027. That is in an effort to make sure that by the time we get to that year, there's only so much work we can do in the year for the year to make that year a success from a group sales standpoint. And so happy to say that this is also a record year with over 121,000 hotel room nights on the books for this 4-year horizon. And just to give you an idea, that doesn't include bowling because it's a 2028 event. And so as we start to turn the page to our fiscal '25 goal, we're looking at 2025 through 2028. That number that we're setting for ourselves is 203,000. So over that 3-year horizon, we're going to go from about 80,000 rooms on the books to over 200,000 rooms on the books. And what that does is allow our hotel community to be a little more selective with the kind of groups that we can attract to the market. That allows us to take maybe less attractive, less rate business and put it in need periods, softer shoulder periods. That allows us to be more aggressive when we're talking about various leisure markets and things like that. So it really sets up the hotel community to be successful in the years to come. And finally,
This is the one right here.
Finally, all that produces what? We have a little over 10,500 rooms in all of Greenville County. When we look at all of those, they grew revenue by 5.4% year over year. Number one in our entire competitive set, significantly above even our number 2 market, which is Charleston, that grew at just 1.1%. And I wanted to give you all, a little bit under the hood here. The city hotels represent about 2/3 of all hotel spending in the market. And city hotels were up 6.8%. Downtown hotels were up 11.4%.
Wow.
So the core, and that really jives with what we're seeing nationally, that as the economy softens a bit, it's mid-scale and economy, sort of that lower value hotel brand and type of chains that have started to see decreases, while luxury upper upscale properties have continued to increase. Over the last few years of COVID recovery, it's been led by leisure. The last couple of years, we've started to add group onto that and some business travel back onto that. And so we're really positioned well in fiscal '25 to continue to push the needle on that as well. When people spend money, they leave behind taxes. And so a record year in taxes, which is why we love visitors. Visitors generated $45.4 million in both hospitality and accommodations tax revenue across Greenville County. Again, about 2/3 of that is made up for in the city. And I'd be remiss if I didn't remind us all that it's not just a reinvestment in tourism marketing that this money allows us to continue to invest in, but we're now able to invest it in affordable housing, future festivals and events, arts and culture, outdoor space. Obviously, our venues, like I've got Beth here, Fluor Field, the Greenville Convention Center, the zoo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We are really able in this community, able to lever these taxes in a way that create a better quality of life for people who live here. 2 more slides, I think, maybe 3. All right, so tourism, despite all the technology that exists that upends jobs every single day, tourism is still a very human-centered industry. 56,000 people currently are employed in the Greenville MSA. In this industry, it's the 4th most employed industry in this market. It represents about 1 in 9 jobs in our industry. And I wanted to note that this is typically an industry that people think of low wages. But in Greenville, we've seen wage growth in our industry of 39% since pre-COVID. And so our people are making more money than they ever have. It is better than the 28% of wage growth across all jobs in Greenville. and it's better than the 24% growth since pre-COVID within our industry nationally. So I think our business owners that are in the retail space, the restaurant space, the entertainment space, and the hotel space, in an effort to attract the talent to accommodate and serve this new level of demand, we've had to pay more for it. And that's a good thing. That means the people can take home additional wages into our community. We've also been able to expand air service. You all know about Breeze, obviously. I'm happy to report that the last month that we received from LA, we were seeing 90% load. I was on the flight on Friday. It was completely slam packed. Wheels up to wheels down was 4 hours and 23 minutes. It was fantastic.
Didn't stop at Fort Worth.
Thank God. On the way back I did, because I flew home yesterday on American. So unfortunately did spend an hour and 20 minutes at DFW. The Avelo, I just wanted to note that the number one route in the Avelo system is GSP to New Haven, back and forth. So it's the number one route. And then much to the happiness of our city manager, we've added the Southwest flight back direct to Nashville. All of those are going very, very well. The last two things I want to, despite us never saying anything about these attributes over here, our leisure advertising creates what we call a halo effect. And so we measure the perception of Greenville across a wide variety of attributes. And we measure the difference between those people who never see our advertising versus the people who do. And despite VGSC never talking about coming to college here, starting a career here, being an entrepreneur here, expanding your business here, raising a family here, there's a natural lift that occurs for those people who have seen and been exposed to our advertising. And so there's this economic development boost that happens from a talent attraction and a business relocation effort as well. And finally, we know that there is some sentiment. I know that you hear anecdotes of too many people, too much growth, too much congestion and parking and traffic and all of the above. But what I would say is that there's no statistical difference between last year and this year for the percentage of our residents that believe that tourism is good for our community. We have an advocacy strategy that is trying to communicate not only to the stakeholders in this community that might work with our organization directly, but how do we cut through the clutter and speak directly to local residents about all the ways in which tourism makes a positive impact on our community, whether it's as an employer, whether it is sending wages into the homes of our community, or how you all reinvest the taxes into the things that make this a better place to live. We're going to continue to do our part, but hopefully we'll see that number continue to grow in the years ahead.
Thank you very much, Heath.
Really good.
Really great and really great news. And
Thank you.
And I would just like to say before we go into questions and comments that Heath has been a great partner to the city, and he has been a great joy to work with since arriving with Visit Greenville. And also.
Talking about the same person?
Evil stuff.
Are you leaving us?
We like working with Heath and we like working with Beth, who's the board chair for Visit Greenville. And we're very fortunate to have y'all as a partner and have seen a lot of great changes since Heath came on board to lead the organization. One of which is, if you'll notice from this, and what I think is really important is that this information is data driven. This is not anecdotal. This is data driven information, which is really important to us when we talk about these things to the community. So thank you, Heath.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. With that, questions and comments. Y'all have 4 minutes.
I'll take one and I can ask you. I will echo that. And I will say in the board meetings, I'm there. We usually have at least one staff member there, and they are very interactive and collaborative across all partners. So I think that helps Heath do his job better. Would it be possible to survey our partners and come back with data on average or median wages for those who are working city only in food, bev, and hotel? It's more of a polling, but every time I ask, look, poke, whatever, I can get countywide, I can get upstate wide. I want to know what our hospitality workers in terms of food, bev, and hotel are making in the city of Greenville. What is that wage?
Okay, we can
And
get
that could
that.
be average or median.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Saul.
With the growing number of hotel properties coming online, what's the status of our occupancy rate?
Our occupancy, for fiscal '24 ended at just above 71%. You know, and I don't, that's in the count, that's across the whole market, it's across the whole county. Yeah,
Higher in the
it'd be
city.
higher in downtown, it'd be higher in the city. And really the hotel projects that we see in the pipeline, in a material way, won't change that for probably 2 years at
Okay.
least, you know, as they've been announced, it's gonna take 24 months or longer to get them open and available to make any material change on supply.
Do you have those numbers by category?
We do. Yeah. What's in the pipeline?
Yeah, no, the occupancy rate.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get those for you and share it with all of council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stahl. Other questions or comments from council? Great job, Heath. Thanks for
Thank
ending
you.
us on a positive note today.
All right.
All
Have a
right.
great meeting.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Fleming, would you like to help adjourn us from our meeting?
All right, who wants to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved properly second. All in favor, say aye. All right, get out. Got 3 minutes, get upstairs.
You got 6 minutes. Not